Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This is another session that we have in a series of educational and leadership learning series that we've done over the last couple of weeks. We started with some people from Disney Imagineering, and some other places leading some sessions for us. Very thankful. And today we have Tim Murphy, CEO of Boomers Parks, and if I mess this up, please let me know. And also something on the board for Coney Parks in South America. Is that correct?
Correct. CEO for Boomers Parks, as well as a board member in
there's a board
Parks South America. Correct.
All right. Tim and I got acquainted last year at the IAPA conference in Orlando, and it struck up conversations. We started doing coming up with these educational series, and happened to mention it to him and what topic he would want to present. And with everything returning back to whatever normal looks like now, this seemed like a very appropriate conversation to have, and very happy that he had agreed to do this, and hope this is very helpful and informative for everybody. So Tim, I will turn it to you, and I will continue to admit people as they come in.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Well, appreciate you having me. So the topic is really about turnarounds, and the point was turnarounds. There's so many things to do. There's not just one thing. There's multiple things to do with a turnaround. But I guess a little history for everybody. Spending better part of 30 years in the restaurant industry, 150 brands, 10,000 locations. Started with the Cerberus Group, and we took back parks, or Cerberus took back parks. I'll call it a repossession, but it was a stalking horse bid, very similar. Didn't pay their debt, so they ended up getting it back after no other bidders. We took the parks back in June 2020. Not an easy task to do in the middle of the pandemic. We had one park open, had only been open for 3 days, not sure when everything else was going to open. And then, of course, we got back to opening after the last real closure, which lasted for a better part of 2.5 months, December to February 2021. And from that point, we did well. We turned it around. So, kind of fast forward, where do we go to? We went from the previous parks, all 8 parks, having a loss of $10 million to a positive nearly $8 million last year. So a good turnaround in roughly 9 months' time in 2021. And we expect to probably double that. When I say those numbers, a negative cash flow loss of 10 million to a positive 8 million, and we're on track to do 13, 14 million this year in EBITDA. So it's a great turnaround, but where do you start? What happens? What do you look at? And during the process, not sure that I was actually going to take over CEO, had no idea really up until the week before when we knew that we were going to win the bid. What were we going to do? Well, we were planning for a lot. We looked at everything. What do you do, and what direction do you go with to make some changes? Well, first is you've got to make some sort of fundamental changes. You can't do the same old thing and expect a different result. That is the definition of insanity. Trying to get something out of the same facts, information, sales, and expect that you're going to make profit without doing some change. So change was inevitable. We needed to make a lot of different changes. One of those changes was getting off of season passes, although we're re-implementing that in our new Big Kahuna's water park, which was old Sahara Sam's, New Jersey, annual passes, not season passes. And that was one change, but all the locations we stopped that. We were looking for profitability. But the first thing I really looked at is I start with the financials. Where do things not look right? Management salaries, what's the lineup, what's the makeup of repairs and maintenance, labor. You look at everything and you're trying to say, okay, what are the things that really stand out? We can't stand for having high salaries in certain areas, whether that's corporate or that's in the park locations, compared to everything else. How does everything else compare? How do they do cash flow wise? As I said, we're losing money. What are some of the things we can do? Well, some of the things we can do is some pricing. We can change labor. We can get costs in line. So you're starting to look at everything. Well, one fundamental point was getting rid of season passes, but another was also the price points we had everything at. We really needed to change price points for both tickets, food and beverage, looking at arcades, how are things laid out? Well, are these parks even taken care of well? A lot of repairs and maintenance that was deferred from the previous company for the better part of 4 years. A lot of stuff we've got to take care of and put in, which makes, quite a task to work on. So, there's a lot of pieces to this that we had to look at, and there isn't just one thing. So I first start fundamentally in any company. What do the numbers tell me? I'm a numbers guy from previous years of being a CFO. What do the numbers tell me? It's not where you stop. The numbers can tell you so much, but you have to go do. You have to go see. You have to take a look at the parks. Another piece is physically being in all the parks, expecting the best out of all the parks. I do this today still. I'm going to stop by Boca on the way out of here when I head over, and I'm going to walk around the park to see what I see. What do I see out of the ordinary? What needs to be fixed? What hasn't been addressed since the last time I've been there? And keep making it better or plussing it, making it better every time you go. Stand where the guest stands, sit where the guest sits, listen to what the guests are saying, watch, talk, interact, but observe quite a bit. And so I don't believe predecessors from the previous company did a lot of that. I wasn't here, so I couldn't tell you that. And it was during the middle of the pandemic when we took over, so nothing was really open. But when you physically go out there and you take a look at it, there's a lot of simple stuff. You got to keep moving the needle forward. You got to keep going after ultimately a better experience. As I've said to my team multiple times, even though we've taken price up, even though we've fixed a lot of things, price does not matter at the end of the day if you deliver an absolute best experience that the guest is going to have. You've had guests on that have come from Disney. I worked for Disney for 6.5 years as well, way back in my career. But that's things that stick with you. How do you create a better experience for the guest ultimately? But again, turning around a company isn't just one thing. There's no silver bullet. When you go to conferences and trade shows, there's not one thing you're going to take away from it. You should be taking hundreds of things away and say, how do we implement this? How do we make this a great experience for our guests that ultimately want to come out? Because part of that getting off of season passes and really getting cost structure in place is looking at who our guests were previously at the previous company to where we are today and when we first took over. Those individuals that were more uneducated individuals looking for discounting, group hunters. We're looking for people that want to stay longer at the park, eat a little bit more, drink a little bit more, give them some experiences and things that they want to go after and really make them want to come back and stay there longer. If they stay there longer, most likely going to spend some more money. So a little more educated, a little more professional, want more time with their family versus someone who's just coming in for the quick hit, discount, move on, or use up every one of your resources. But you really want to make every guest profitable. You never make it up on volume. With more guests in a discounted situation, you're always going to lose if that's the case and you don't have the right profit margins. So let's make it so that we bring in more guests, they stay longer, and they're much more profitable to us. I'll take a breath and take any questions you've got. But we'll go from that point of view of it's everything, all the way to the best guest experience that can be. But before you can ever get there, you got to get cost structure in line. Any questions there? Well, hold. All right, so with it, when you take a look at the cost structure to begin with, where do you start? Take a look at the P&Ls. I don't believe that they were laid out this way, but you need to set P&L side by side. What does this location look like? What does every location look like that we're about to embark upon, the 8 that we have? All are different, all 8 different demographics, all 8 different cost structures. The attendance numbers are different. Some are big cities like Boca Raton, Florida, Irvine, California, or small cities like Santa Maria, or destination facilities like Destin, Florida. Who comes there and what do we do differently? What can we charge to each of those locations on price? What can we do with labor? Is the management labor structured? Do we have enough management that's running the location to begin with? Is it too much in labor? Too little in labor? Do we have someone that was twice what they should be paid there? So really looking at how do you kind of even things out as you move through. Once you start getting, all right, we know what the fixed costs are. We know ultimately what we needed to do when we took back the rent and catching up rent for the previous company that didn't pay their rent for a period, catching up vendors when and where we were going to keep those vendors. In the case of a stalking horse bid and the previous company went bankrupt, there's certain vendors you don't take. But at the end of the day, you need to make new relationships. So how do we go out and create new vendor relationships? We need to make sure that we've got good terms, we can reduce our costs, and we know our food costs that's coming in. We can understand the pieces of food cost and what makes it up. In addition, coming from a restaurant background, I also know what food costs should be. And so when we look at someone that's in my park, if you go to Disney, you're going to pay a premium and their costs are going to be higher. Your retail price is going to be higher, but they've got such volume, they knock it down. What I was looking for in my four walls is, unlike a restaurant that's usually about 30% food costs, 25, 35, depending on what restaurant you're with, I want to get a 20% food costs. You're someone in my park, you're captured in my four walls, you're probably not running on the street to a restaurant or convenience store to eat. So you can pay a little bit more. You're not going to pay absorbent, but you're going to pay a little bit more. So I want to increase the price or take a look at the portion sizes that we're physically doing and make sure we can drive food costs better. If we do this right, it will throw more to the bottom line than most other restaurants that are out there. So that's from a food cost point of view. And the same thing when you look at retail, our arcades, any retail merchandise we sell, how do we get closer to a 20% food cost? Because that will throw more to the bottom line when you ultimately get there. In addition, on the sales side for food and beverage, going back to it for just a second, it was very lethargic. It was 1 to 4%, sometimes 5% in sales, where we're really striving for a goal to get us closer to 30% in food sales. Well, that's a lot of movement you got to do. You got to promote this really well. There's a lot of things that you need to do with this. And so with it, you focus on, okay, what will cause more food sales? Well, if I'm going after an educated individual, what do they like? You're always going to have the fan favorites of pizzas and hot dogs and hamburgers and French fries, but what else do they like? So we brought in flatbreads and sliders, upgraded some nachos and different salads. We brought in different toppings or flavor profiles of a Nashville hot, a Korean barbecue. We've done a chili lime. We're going into a Korean, a Caribbean menu for our baked kahunas, because it's more island themed, but there's elements to that that can come into our parks. We also looked at, in our kitchens, we have underutilized space. How about we create a ghost kitchen in here? So we created what's called Unleashed Cheese, a macaroni and cheese concept that's a ghost kitchen that we're also selling in the parks. So you're seeing lots of pieces that will allow people to stay there, and you can blend it into parties and group sales, as well as the patrons that want to come there and stay and hang out longer. In addition, when and where possible, let's add more alcohol to the process. Every location has beer and wine, but how about we bring in full hard liquor and create some different drinks? So we've done that in our 2 Florida parks, have a full liquor license. We've added it in Irvine, California, another park. We've already had it in 2 other parks. So now 5 out of 8 of our parks have full alcohol. That has allowed for more sales. It has grown sales in each of those parks. And so, in the last look, we were in the 15 to 20% range in running foods at 10 to 20, I'd say, because some parks weren't as strong yet. But we've really moved it from the lethargic 1 to 4%. So I got more out of it, but with a better profit margin, we're throwing more money to the bottom line. All right, so that's food. We think we've solved food. We've gone after it. Park. Well, we need to be more profitable. People need to spend a bit more in the park. And how do you get them to start trading up to a higher ticket? You know, we've gone from a overall check average per cap of $20, $30 in 2018 to last week was in the $53 range average across all my parks. So it's a big movement in sales, but it's also adding packages together, bringing arcade in it, putting some different things together. It lifts the price. And we haven't, to this point, really added new attractions. We fixed up the parks. We've redone the bathrooms. We've done a lot of painting. We've rebranded the park to our new Boomers colors and Big Kahuna's colors as well. And so we've now are looking to put in more attractions. We've been actually working on it for quite a while. California's tough to do that with restrictions and permitting and so forth. But we have things coming to Boca. We have things going to several parks in California. It's a new attraction to be there. It's going to be more and more exciting. And that will allow us to inflate or get the price level up higher. So we keep moving the needle up higher. We keep adding more to it. We create new different packaging. In addition, we've added places. As I said, we wanted to go from someone who's a discounter that didn't want to spend too much to someone that wants to stay there and hang out. So we've added our Boomer's Backyard, a great field in a backyard, watch some games, sit under Edison lights, heaters, umbrellas on a grass area. So that's our Boomer's Backyard. Then we did something inside called the Chill Zone, hang out in the air conditioned area. And it's a really nice, cool feel with some blue colors and gray colors, just to kind of chill out, if you will. It works so well in our water parks. We have cabanas in our water parks. Most water parks do, but why not put them in FECs? So we did it in FECs, and that's working pretty well too, where we're able to sell more space to somebody to hang out as their place in the park for the day. And it's with a cover, TV, ceiling fan, refrigerator, place to charge your phone on a nice little grass area and a nice place that's kind of secured for you. That has allowed more parties to grow outside versus inside. So it's really complemented a lot more pieces to it, but people stay there longer. And that's the idea. How do we build things in the park that stay there longer? In addition, we're working on some very cool things to really focus on team building events, corporate events, places where people can compete. People like to go against each other, have a little competition. But that's great for team building. You can start looking at different day parts to bring people in besides just a catering meal, a place to sit and talk. Let's have them compete against each other on go-karts, miniature golf, other attractions, laser tag, and a new augmented reality item that we're working on and patenting that should hopefully open up by Q3, Q4 this year in Boca Raton. So quite unique in the fact that we're seeing, where does this price point go? How do we take an FEC even higher? And I've said this loosely, that we're a bit of, a larger FEC, a Dave & Buster's main event and Andretti's on steroids, because we have so much more with the outside and the inside, in addition to some things that will really keep them there that much longer. And we've really started to upgrade the quality of the food, having alcohol. And so it's some great things to grow the business. But when you start back from where the beginning was in 2020, we have shifted tremendously, and that has created more cash flows for us, more opportunities to go back and reinvest into the parks. We were lucky. Obviously, when you come out of the pandemic, or when we came out of the pandemic, everything was wide open, meaning everyone was going to go pay whatever the price was. But having the foresight of saying, yes, but this won't last forever, we need to have other things for them to do so that the experience will be created and created better for the guest. So that ultimately there'll be things that they want to do. There are going to be foods that they're going to want. There will be different beverages that they will want, and they will then stay there. We have also taken the time to go through our staff, because one of the fundamental things when we started this business was we needed to live by 10 core values. Core values such as honesty, integrity, transparency. Everyone's going to know what's going on. We want everyone to be honest. We want to be fulfilled with integrity. We want to take innovative risk-taking, meaning we want to create new things or new experiences innovatively and take that risk, but more of an educated risk. What do we think is going to happen with this? And how do we get more people involved to go try these different things? So core values are central to us in strategic partnerships and social responsibility and so forth. But these are fundamental items that I knew we needed to have after we get past a lot of the, hey, we got to fix these types of cost things, get the pricing in line, get the food costs in line, get labor in line, and really analyze the business that much better, because ultimately, like we're now seeing, and there's so many other competitors in the market, we are really focused on experience. If Disney's done it so well, I like to say to my team, we want to be a Disney-like experience. Now, we don't have the money that Disney has. I mean, we do have really good backing, but with Cerberus private equity. But the bottom line is, it's all about what we deliver to the guest: a good time, something they're going to remember, something that they're going to be wanting to talk to their friends about, they're going to recommend. And we're trying to create this as a place to not only come for fun, but come for good food too. Good experience. Bring your team, bring your corporate team. These are some of the things and principles behind it that it is starting to take hold, and team members are starting to say, hey, this is what an upgraded experience is. Meaning there's no trash on the ground, you talk to the guest, you really make sure the bathrooms are clean, things are wiped down, like any other real good business. And so you really need to be focused on what the guest is going to want, is going to need, that's going to desire. I've learned this through the experiences of other companies. Some really endorse the guest and some don't. Some entertainment companies say, hey, we just open it and that's it, we don't deal with it. But there's so much more. It's so fundamental in so many different pieces that you need to really focus on how the guest is going to be greeted, what this is going to look like. Is there a consistency in the brand from place to place? Do we have good, vibrant colors? Do we also talk to the guests through social media? How do we improve our experience? And one thing for me that I take from where we are now, that I think we're primed to continue to move forward, that's more things to do, more things to work on, always. But one of the things for me is looking at, what are our reviews a year ago when we were just reopening, coming out of the pandemic, to where they are today. Yelp was a 2.9, really tough, to now we're at a 4.4. Google has improved from a 3.9 to a 4.4 as well. So we're in the right track, meaning we're starting to see better responses from our guests. We're never perfect. We're always trying to improve and strive for that and fix where we can. But the bottom line is, how do we address that? And we've done this through discussions with the team, core values, as well as bring in some good guest speakers. We did send our team through the Disney Institute of Guest Experience. But the bottom line is, we keep talking about it. We keep talking about it with our team. We keep talking about it over and over. And there is no stopping, or let's just don't do that anymore. It's constant change, constantly looking at the experience and how do we make it better, that ultimately a guest is going to want to come back, talk to their friends, turn this around a bit. Hey, maybe we'll have a party with you. Maybe we'll have a group event with you. Maybe you'll just bring your family back and you're gonna have dinner with us, and then say, hey, there's a great arcade, or there's other great experiences in our water parks. How do we upgrade the food? How do we make it consistent? We went from 4 brands, which was 2 FECs, Boomers, as well as LA Speed Zone. LA Speed Zone is turning into a Boomers today. It's actually being repainted. Big Kahuna's was in Destin, Florida, and there was Sahara Sam's in New Jersey, but we decided that Sahara Sam's needed to change a bit. It's been kind of stagnant, same situation for a long period of time. But we want to create a consistency. So now we have 2 brands, Boomers, Big Kahuna's. And so that's really where our focus is. How do we utilize the same between each, maybe some foods, drinks, things of that nature, but really a consistent experience that you're going to get, and keep building upon it. So that will be our thrust as we move forward. That has allowed us a lot of opportunities. Now we're looking at a lot of other FECs and parks to take a look at, to see how do we maybe bring them into our fold and become a Boomers or Big Kahuna's. So that's kind of the focus, but we looked at multiple things as we got there. Get the brand fix first, really looking at the numbers, getting everyone to understand the core values, getting the numbers under control, fixing the parks, getting the parks back to where they are. But the next step is really experience for the guest. Do the guests remember you? Do they want to talk to your friends about you? Will they go outside the company? I mean, we're doing some things on a mobile app that should be coming out pretty soon, or next several months, to connect the guests more, even when they're not at a Boomers park. So there's more things that we're doing there. Ultimately, we want to go into licensing some of the items that we've got intellectually, as well as potentially franchising this business as we move forward and acquiring more parks, because we know what we've done to the parks. We know what we've turned it around. But to a turnaround, every single item is important. I can't stress that more. And you need to, it's so overwhelming when you first take on, oh my gosh, this is a bankrupt company. Which parks do we keep? What do we do here? What are the costs associated with, in the middle of this, hey, you're in the middle of a pandemic now. What do you do with that? That's been the most trying thing for me is, okay, one more closure. We've got to lay off X amount of our whole workforce for a period of time over the holidays. It kills you inside. But you keep moving forward with what the overarching mission is. And the mission is, yes, profitability, but how do you create a better brand? How do you create a better brand in this experience? And incorporating not only experience, team building, better foods, but something that's going to last much longer than just quick hit, fix, move on. Because that's what a lot of private equity is known for. But I work for some great folks that they're more focused on building this brand and making this a household name. I'll take a stop there, and if there's any questions that I can go with.
Yeah, sometimes people have a question, but they just need someone to jumpstart a question, which I didn't do the last time. I apologize for that, because they're actually a couple people direct messaged me a question to ask that weren't able to stick on, or that they didn't make it on, because one of the things coming up, and whether or not a company needs a turnaround to do a turnaround, regardless of what the issue was, whether it's bad financial management, pandemic, or an unfortunate mishap like what has happened here recently, still an issue that needs to be turned around. And now that we're coming out of the pandemic, last year, you and I were talking that literally all the venue had to do is put a open sign on and people flocked in. And now we're back to the what have you done for me lately coming up this year. And so how do you manage expectations that people have coming in, and how do you pull those, what the guests want, and how do you prioritize that?
Okay, lots of pieces to that. So, how do we poll the folks? I mean, obviously, we're very responsive and listening to the reviews that we're getting. We're discussing with the guests that are coming in all the parks. What's physically taking place. What are they looking for? You can't do everything for everybody. Price is a very sensitive issue. To your points, when you reopened, price didn't matter wherever you went, and it didn't matter about experience, because they were just happy to get out of the house and go do something or take their kids someplace. We had a significant jump from people. Normally an FEC water park, a local regional water park is going to pull something close radius to the location, especially an FEC, 15 to 20 minute radius or 15 to 20 miles, what have you. We were pulling from over 100 miles away, lots of places, the FECs, water parks, so forth. Destin is obviously a travel area, but you look at the Bocas, the Irvines, and others, they were pulling from all over the place. And I believe we still have a fair share of that, but it has dwindled back closer to the local places. There's so many more opportunities out there. But you listen to your guests. And to me, getting out there and talking to the guests, observing, what are they looking for? Where do they look? What do they look at? How do we communicate to them? There's so many different ways to communicate to a guest and get feedback from the guest, for that matter. Yeah, social media is one of those. Direct inquiries. People do have, different feelings about lots of different things, whether they're, not saying right or wrong, but whether they have a correct opinion or not about something. You're taking it in. Do we see consistency? Do we see a pattern here? When you go to the parks, if the park is not looking pristine, I'm going to let operations know about it. I'm going to let food and beverage know about it. This is what I'm seeing differently. This is what the guest is going to see, because I want to experience every park like a guest. We can look at numbers all day long. We can see reviews all day long. We can get phone calls on this, or I get hit on social media, LinkedIn, my Facebook account, whatever it might be, and I'll respond in some form or fashion. But the bottom line is, you're never really going to know unless you physically go to the park what's going on. You've got to sit where the guest sits, look at what the guest looks. And by doing that, we did a lot of different things. Not only did we say, okay, we have bad signage in some places, we need better wayfaring through the park. And we've done that. And we've done things, we've talked to them on the ground. Just Albertson sells you things on the supermarket on the floor, same thing as in the park. Why are we not doing the same thing? Let's talk to them. Let's get some banners up. Video works great. and we need more of it. When I first got there, static boards on food and beverage, but around the park. There's a lot of different things in a lot of different areas that we can talk to the guests through video, through pictures on screens. So we did Trons, we did a lot, and then not just in the food and beverage area, but outside. We've done it throughout the arcade area because we want to talk to the guests. And another way to talk to the guest was smells. Disney does it pretty well. Knox Brewery does it pretty well. And we implemented some different items that blow out cinnamon. We have cinnamon donuts. We have things we want the guests to eat, try, whatever. We're getting something that will, kind of bring them towards the food, and I believe it's helped. So we look at it different ways, but we also not only listen to what the guest had to say through reviews, discussion, management feedback, what have you, but also let's sit where the guest is. What does a guest actually do? If you make it really look good and feel like it's a great experience, then the guest is apt to come back more. We're going to see a little more appreciation. We have seen an increase over our plans for attendance this year. We've seen it in revenue as well. We were quite way ahead of our plan so far in just 12 weeks out of this year. Very happy to see. Over what we thought it would be. That's going to get tougher and tougher as the year progresses, and we'll learn a little bit more about the guest. But I think we're describing and communicating back to the guest rather well in multiple levels. I hope that answers your question. So.
And I believe someone's got their hand raised. Camilo, I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Hello, how you doing? He's from Coney Park in South America in Colombia. So.
Oh wow. Okay, you're good. Go ahead.
Hello, T.
How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm Camilo from Colombia. Tim, that's very good. All that you said, understand the numbers first and the guest experiences of the most important part of our business. And we have a lot of activities to lift the price, to lift the average ticket. That when we analyze the numbers and the company, one of my biggest concerns is a lot of guests lost the profit in his families and don't have the capacity to spend money in our parks. I'm thinking leave the price, but I understand a lot of people now in South America, his incomes was affected by pandemic. How we create a product for this family to have experience in our parks that spend a little money. I know that is a ticket, that is a transaction, and for me it's important, and it's very important have a good experience for all the families. And obviously, I know that we have a lot of strategies in pricing, food and beverage, souvenirs, and the souvenirs help us to increase the average ticket. But the 15 or 20% is people who spend $2 or $3 in our parks, and we lost that guest. How create a product for these families?
Yeah, and it's a very good question, Camilo. So looking at it first, and this is for everyone as well, is demographically. Looking at each of the parks, I know we've had these conversations as well in the board meetings, but understanding your demographics, number one. What do we have? And we have some parks that are in some, I'll say, lower income areas as well in the US, in our physical location. We have some of the very wealthy areas. It's knowing what your guests are and also what they can and can't do. I was in a slight tangent, but we had one park in particular, I won't say where, in the US that was a lower demographic, would not spend much. It was very interesting to see when we implemented pricing changes, everyone said, this is not going to happen here. This is not going to take, we're not going to get the per caps that we're looking for this particular park. We did it and we got it. Did we lose attendance? No, not really. Is attendance what it used to be in 2019? Nope. Hadn't gone back there. We haven't got groups. We haven't had different parties and things like that have all come back. They're starting to. But with it is what can you create as a package, Camilo, that will suffice to that smaller group? I wouldn't necessarily, what's going to happen if you advertise this particular package to a smaller group, then you're going to lower your overall purchases by everyone else coming in. So what we saw was the lowest item we had on the board. We kept taking the board up and creating different packages to kind of move them up. But what happened was they would go to that lower one. So what we ended up doing is putting a key in the system, and I try to identify when we had someone like that. For an example, a grandfather would want to come in and play miniature golf only. Well, we're not going to put that up on the board because people will trade to a lower price point to that. But we had it available in the system. We still do. That someone wants to come in for any one particular item, they can do it. We don't want to turn them away. But you create that package, you let it, it's more of a word of mouth, but you have it coded in your system. But I'm not going to be putting on the board because people will trade down. The idea is with the board, we want them to trade up or trade to a better deal on the board, but below we had something for them. It's a matter of more of a grassroots effort to getting that out and making sure that the expectations of each one of your cashiers or your retail individual or the person that's taking a ticket is now discussing opportunities with them. Are we successful all the time and completely selling it? No. We have more training to do with that, but the idea there is how do you train them to it, always having something available like that at a lower price point. Side tangent, similar to this discussion, is that we, had something on food and beverage. That was a very low price point. Everyone traded down. We created different packages on the board to trade up, but there's still always keys in the system to buy something at a lower price. So my point by saying this, one, know your demographics, specifically where they're going to be at much lower. Not all your locations. I know from your tour that you gave me in Medellin, took me around, there were some nice places and there's some not so nice places. So, but knowing specifically, maybe just for that market, you've got to build in the key, and it's also known for others that we have a better deal. If you want to play a little bit, we've got something for you. It's a bit of sales, and you got to make sure that the person behind the register can sell that, and the manager would need to work with it. But in your larger locations, I wouldn't be pushing that lower amount. You could have the key in there, but I really wouldn't be pushing it. If someone knew from another park that you had it, and they were happened to be at your location, then I would give them as an opportunity. But I wouldn't do it widespread. I would only do it specifically to the locations you really think you need to pick up, and your demographic is a much lower demographic there. Have the key available and train up the individual to be able to sell that lower price point so you don't lose those couple dollars you're looking for. Does that help?
Yes, Tim, that's very important. Understand the demographics. And here in South America, our cities is smaller.
Smaller, but you've got different demographics all over the place in your city. Yeah.
Yes, yes. But that segmentation, according to demographics, according to the area of the park, and understand what is the kind of package that we can build for our guests is very important. Yes.
Because you don't want to lose a dollar. You don't want to lose the profitability of someone coming through there. You don't want to say, no, we don't have that. And frankly, we've had some team members say that to guests, and I wish they wouldn't, but they do. And that comes back as a negative review. Well, how do we train better on that? How do we get that out there? But have the ability to have it in the system already, but train them up that I've got something for you. You don't need to walk away. I've got some things for you guys to do. And that will be enough to make them happy and hopefully a better experience, even though they couldn't afford as much. Price what you need to price on your normal price board for what you really want to sell to. So that's an opportunity, but if they don't ever let them be discouraged by it. So.
Yes, Tim, thank you very much.
Sure, it's good seeing
you. Tim, one of the things you mentioned earlier, which I'd spoken with a company a number of years ago. I did some consulting for a water park close by, and sometimes there's a lot of things that happen to be in a general manager or vice president or whatever in their blind spot. And I just encourage them, if you want to know what your guest experience is, first you can look at the reviews, but you can also go home, drive to your venue, and act like it's your first time visiting. When you walk up, what do you see? Are there weeds growing through the cracks? Or is there paint chipping? Is there smudges all over the windows? And that can really be an eye-opening thing to be able to just really walk and experience as if it is your first time. What are your impressions? And I think a lot of times many people in management don't, yeah, they're deep in the weeds, so they can be sort of excused for that, but there's a lot of intel that they can gather that can improve their own bottom line just by being a guest of their own place.
Totally agree. Totally agree, David.
Something that someone had messaged me also, they want to know from the time that you start doing the assessment of what you may need to do to turn things around, what kind of a timeline could they be looking at from the time that you start looking into that to execution?
Sure. Well, obviously it depends on capital expenditures. What do you need to spend if a building needs to be painted, or you got to get permitting through, and some jurisdictions require certain things. But, really to be impactful, you got to have like a 100-day plan when you start this. What are you going to do in that first 100 days? Okay, I'm going to execute X. We need to do certain things on getting some costs in line. We're going to cut some things. We're going to change some pricing. It's got to be a relatively short window to start seeing impact. And if you don't see impact right away, then you got to double down your efforts. The goal, though, is, you need to get a laid out plan. What I don't know is what's it going to take in time to get a painting permit. Who knew that it would take forever in California to paint a building and take forever, versus Florida, that I could basically walk in, get a permit, and be done with it. So you have to know your jurisdiction. You need to know what it's going to take. So if you can't get to painting, say, until day 200-ish, and you find that out and you're hearing from others, that's what it's going to take, great. Then what else do we start going down the pecking order? You're going to set up what's the highest, quickest return I'm going to get on every one of these items. Well, this position needs to be eliminated. We need to streamline this. We need to really take a look at labor over here. Why do we have, certain things over and over that's being repetitive, that maybe it doesn't need to be done that way? Maybe it needs to be done in different stages. Or for instance, on labor, can you stagger labor? If you're bringing in labor, do them in 5-minute increments. You don't have to bring them all in at 10 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning, or whenever that might be. Start doing staggered increments as to when you physically need to bring them in based on volumes. Your weekends are much busier. You're slower on the weekdays. When can you start bringing them in so you could stagger labor and cut some labor if you need to, so it's less that you're going to have to incorporate? Eliminating overtime if you've got any opportunities there. Hiring correctly, getting the right people to believe in what you're doing. Live your values. Live with what you say. If your values are like our 10 core values, then live it. You need to live it as the leader, and then everyone below needs to live it as well, and you need to keep reinforcing it. I've said multiple times, I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to keep saying what our values are. I'm going to keep discussing it. I'm going to keep talking why we do these things. Because, for instance, do you have someone doing something just very minor in our redemption area and pocketing some money because the person wanted to get one of the gifts? That doesn't mean that you can't accept the money and put it in the company's pocket, but did you take it? If you took it, then you're being dishonest. And live the values and make sure everyone in your team lives those values. So that if that's a terminable offense, they should be terminated on the spot. We should do the things that we say we're going to do, even if it hurts us, because we know we're going to have to deal with maybe extra work we're going to have to do for that day, week, or whatever it might be until we replace somebody. But looking at different expenses, repairs and maintenance, question, why? Why is one part much higher than the other? Do we have theft there? It's a possibility. We found a particular instance where people were, taking things from our go-kart area and selling out the back door. Repairs and maintenance growing through the roof. Why? Water. Why was water being consumed so much? You probably have a broken leak, or you're overrunning irrigation or something like that. So identify the things, get onto it, but sometimes they sit for a while. And then the number then becomes, well, this is our normal water bill. Well, maybe it's just you're in a sinkhole and the water is going underneath the building. So there's things like that you can always look at, but sometimes when you compare them like that, you can really see something that jumps out that you can address pretty quick.
Does anybody else have any questions? I don't want to block anybody from doing that. There was one other question that was sent to me, but I think they had to hop off the call. Maybe they can get on the replay. If someone does have an additional question, just raise your hand in the chat area and I can receive that. The question they had for that was, what is your main vector of communication for employees and guests? and knowing that would probably be something separate for both, because I think what they do is they use email and they feel like email is not the best vector anymore.
Yeah, and I think ultimately in this business, there's all modes. You know, me being an old school guy, yeah, I like the email, like the trail, like to read a little bit, like to get some more information on it. But there's obviously texting, there's social media, we get a lot on. How do we talk to the guests? Different forms, different surveys, different opinion types of items, as well as to our team members. We utilize Paycom. We utilize, that's our port to talk to all team members. We do this in meetings. We do this, yes, with emails to let them know what's going on. But, you know, we have different modes to get to them in different ways. And something that, you know, we're looking at a little bit more is how do we also talk to them ultimately with an app that we're going to be coming up with for our guests, for a team. You know, how do we, you know, have lineups daily? It's kind of like a restaurant when you go in, you know, what's going on today? What's the hot stuff? What are the safety things we need to worry about? We have safety meetings. We discuss all these points so that we can make sure that's a good quality, safe product for our guests. It's part of one of our core values, clean and safe, as a core value to us. But these are things that we've implemented. It's not something that everyone is used to, at least in a family entertainment center environments. In a restaurant environment, people get that, especially casual dining or fine dining restaurants. Not so much in fast food. And kind of our food is a bit kind of a cross between fast casual and fast food. So you don't really see that too much in that environment, but the idea behind that is to share with what's going on in your park for the day. Hey, we got a group coming up. We got multiple parties coming up. Hey, this is the way we need to make sure this food is presented, or this place needs to be cleaned. This is our opportunity to talk to our guests our team members at that time. But that ultimately, to me, if we do it right, is talking to our guests and what the guest experience is going to be like. Picking up trash on the ground, showing as a leader, walking across the parking lot. I've said this multiple times. I've walked in the parking lot, picked up trash off the ground. We all need to be doing this. It happens, it shows up, unfortunately, but we need to keep doing it. The place needs to always look fresh. So, you know, we can do this to with our team by leading by example. We can do this by talking to them on Paycom. We can do this with lineups. We can do this obviously with management discussions and making sure this gets pushed down, our senior team meetings, and with our guests. How do we do it? We have an app that's coming up on this. We are reviewing and responding to our guests on social media, obviously direct inquiries to the websites, and making sure that we get back to them. And, you know, and if there's always someone from our team who's going to talk to our guests. So there's multiple ways that we do this. It's not just one form or fashion. Me being an old school guy with email, I prefer that because at least I have a trail history I can go back to. But I also know I get texts all the time. I get social media inquiries all the time. So we definitely have to respond.
Thanks, Tim. Is there anyone else who has any other questions? I don't want to cut anybody off, but also Tim, I don't know if you broke in to do questions and you actually had more. I don't know if that was your stopping point for questions or if you had more. But
no, I'm open for more questions. But okay. You know, again, with a turnaround, it always starts with the numbers. And are they in a line? Because things you got to look at. When I looked at all the parks, and again, there were 16 parks originally. There's now 8 today. I looked at all 16 parks. Gave my feedback to Cerberus as to which parks we should keep, which ones should be sold, and which ones were physically operating today. But I also looked at all the competition. You learn a lot from your competition. And people say, well, how do I know what my competition is doing? Go there. Go see what they're doing. See what they're charging. See what experiences they're providing. You know, do they have extra services? Do they have new games that maybe you don't in an arcade? Or how well are their team members trained to talk to guests? I'm amazed that it's a wild, wild west in a lot of family entertainment centers. Some are very good. Some don't even talk to you at all and ignore the heck out of you. That's fine because I get more information when I walk through the park because they're not talking to me. You know, so but I might be snapping pictures, and I've snapped thousands of pictures of my competitors. But I want to know, what are they doing? How do you know what they're physically doing? I from the years of being in restaurants, I still do it today. My wife I drive her nuts when we go out to a restaurant. I'm counting labor that's on the floor. I'm seeing how long the wait times are, and do they greet the guest? Does a manager come by? And I don't care whether that's a fast food or a fine dining restaurant, I'm still paying attention to that. But that's the same thing you do when you go out to your competitors. Well, I know what we should be doing, but what are they doing? And how do we make ourselves different? I don't mean just slightly different. I mean, I want to be night and day away from the normal competitors. I want us to be a Disney-like experience. I mean, you get the same experience in Disneyland, California, or the Magic Kingdom in Orlando, or in Paris, Disneyland. You get the same experience wherever you go, that you feel quality, you feel they've tried to connect with me in some way. I don't care if it's a smile or an actual hello, hold the door, whatever it might be. But those are the things that you don't get normally in an FEC. You don't really get a lot in a lot of restaurants. It's really tough with quick service and fast casual. You get a very stale experience. And that is one of the things that obviously the service industry has a challenge with, is how do you continue to train them? But I always want to know what the other competitors are doing, because it tells me so much. Yeah, I look at price. Yeah, I look at labor. Yeah, I look at their attractions. But what do they deliver on experience? Is it something we need to change? Because our competitors will tell me a lot. And sometimes there's new ideas that come out of that, or a new variation of it. And it's not like you're just trying to copy, but hey, what did they do so well to capture the guests there longer, or a different food product, or a different package that might take place? So I'm always looking at stepping into other competitors' locations to give me a lot of feedback on their service, on their price, on their product, and really experience. What did they do? Or do I even need to worry about them? Meaning, if they've done so horribly, it's like, yeah, they'll be out of business. Maybe it's an opportunity to acquire or do something else down the road. But go out and see your competitors. Most people don't do that. I don't care if you're in a restaurant business. I don't care if you're in a family entertainment center or water park. Look at your competitors. What do they do? And are we doing the best we can do to be better than them?
All right, we have a couple minutes left, and unless people have any questions, anyone wants to ask anything? Hold on. Nope. All right, well, I don't have anything further. I had a stack of the 6 questions, and I think I got them all out and answered. So,
right. Well, there's nothing else I can say, but know your numbers, know inside and out. If you work for private equity, know even better than that. So that's one tip. If you ever get that opportunity to work with private equity, just make sure you really know what's going on. So.
But unless someone has anything further, we can go ahead and wrap. But Tim, thank you for taking some time to speak today, and thank you to everybody else, those who are on and those who had to bat out to log in as well. And we have a couple more coming up over the next few weeks. Specifically, time to be out there before the seasonal parks ramp up. Let's see. Okay, and but yeah, if anybody has any questions, you can email me if we have Tim's contact information. Tim, do you have any contact information?
Tim at Boomer's Parks. You can get a hold of me there. So.
All right, perfect. Tim,
right.
Thank you. Everybody else, thanks for logging in, and we'll catch you all again soon.
Thank you, David, for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.